Shalena, let me start with you. You want to say your name and your current job title?
Okay, my name is Shalena Doss. I'm the Talent Acquisition and Retention Manager.
Thank you. How about you, Vicki?
My name is Vicki Hallsworth and I'm the Director of International Human Resources.
All right, Amy, you're up.
My name is Amy Skyles and I am the Learning and Development Manager.
That would be perfect. If you would talk about, when a resume comes in, here's what here's how positions are created. And when a resume comes in, here's what we look for. And yeah, talk about that process. That would be great.
Okay. So we look for several different things when we're interviewing candidates, and obviously those things will depend upon the position that we're trying to fill. But just some of the standard things that we look for are, are you a good culture fit within the company? That's very important to us at Brewer Science. So are you a good culture fit? Do you have people skills, good people skills? Are you easy to get along with? Can you communicate well? Those are some of the basic things that we look for. And then when we look at specific jobs, that's when we start looking at your technical background and really what qualities or credentials do you have to fill that specific role.
Whenever positions are advertised, how do you determine, what roles are needed, what jobs are needed?
Jobs, how we determine jobs are needed, those come from the hiring manager. And then that's a discussion that HR and the CLT has to determine which positions will be filled. But as far as filling positions and requests, those all come from our hiring managers.
So like each area of the company would have a hiring manager, right? So each department?
That's correct.
Whenever someone comes in for an interview, is it all done on the telephone? Are we doing this like conference calls? If I would get called for an interview, what would it look like if I was invited, if I applied for a job, what would it look like to me as a candidate?
So the hiring process for every team or every manager is a little bit different. We have a standard structure, but we're flexible and we're really there to, be of assistance and support the hiring team. Typically, it's a three-part process. So HR would do the initial interview. That would be somebody in recruiting would do that first initial phone screen just to see, do they have the credentials and qualifications that we're looking for? Do they have the basic skill sets that we're looking for? If we feel that they do, then typically we would send them then to the hiring manager to do another phone screen. And if they make it through that step in the interview process, then they are going to, traditionally they would come on site, but due to the pandemic, we've been doing a lot of virtual, but then they're going to interview with a panel. Typically that's anywhere from like 3 to 6 employees. They can be, from all throughout the company, and they do try to get different employees from different groups within the company. And that can oftentimes include a presentation as well. That's normally the last step in the process. And from there, HR and the hiring team will regroup and decide who to make the offer to once all interviews have been conducted.
On average, can you give us an idea how many people apply for an open position at Brewer Science? Are there always multiple applicants for every open position?
It really just depends on the position. Sometimes we can have a large number of applicants, and sometimes it's very difficult. We're going out and we're sourcing a lot and just trying to find that perfect applicant. So to give an average, it would really be inadequate because I really can't. It really varies depending on the position.
How critical is it that on their resume that they share the level of education, what their skill sets? How critical is that?
So resumes are something that we're really trying to educate a lot of different people on, because everybody's trained a little bit differently. So whenever we're looking to hire a specific position, depending on the position, education is important. But what we're really looking for on your resume is we're wanting you to show what achievements or leadership or the ability to succeed. That's really what we're looking for on a resume.
Okay. Shalena, is there anything you want to add that talks about the recruiting process?
I don't think so. I'm wondering if after everybody just starts chiming in, I might think of different things. But I think for now I'm good.
Okay. Vicki, do you want to share on the international perspective?
Sure. I mean, we have a general process for recruiting, but we do really see a difference when it comes to different locations. So how we source somebody in the US is very different to how we source somebody in Asia. And it is very different needs, different approaches, different websites, different, even down to interviewing. One question that we couldn't ask in the US, we could ask in Asia. So, for example, if somebody's planning to start a family or age, those questions you can ask in Asia, but you can't ask them in other locations. So, how we recruit is very specific to the location. And even then, we have to look at, once we hire somebody, the onboarding. So we do onboard everybody into the company very similar, make them feel part of the company where they learn about the culture. But then we also look at it at a very local level. And that's even down to the documentation that we use to bring them on board. So we have employment contracts internationally, whereas in Missouri, it's based on offer letter and it's an at-will state. So it's very specific to the location where we hire on how the HR processes start and what that involves. But that's great, it brings such variety. You learn about different employment laws, different ways of engaging with employees, and also how to get feedback from employees. So in Asia, it's very much a team recognition is highly recognized more than individual recognition. So when we do look at our programs within HR, we try and do it so everybody is treated fairly, everyone's part of the same programs, but we do then have to take into account cultural sensitivity as well. And so that can vary from employment and compensation, and that employment offering that we offer in terms of benefits is very unique to the location, but also down to recognition is also very cultural as well. Even though we have a culture of recognition, we have to really think how we do that in each of our locations, because the way we recognize somebody in the US may be very uncomfortable for somebody in Asia. So there's a lot of education. So even though you're working in manufacturing, you're dealing with very different environments as well. So for Brewer Science, we don't manufacture outside of the US yet, but we are part of a manufacturing company. But you deal with very different employees, just like somebody is very individual. We have different individual processes within each of our locations when it comes to HR, which again, it gives you variety, and it's educational as well.
That extends to our development opportunities as well. Just even with onboarding, like Vicki mentioned, there are different handbooks and things like that. So we have to make sure that employees are aware of their own policies, but also sometimes there's that crossover, being aware of why things happen differently in one location versus another. And a part of what we do with even just the manager training right now with our monthly manager and director meetings, we're doing some bias training and really helping people to evaluate their own different perspectives as well as those of others.
Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about the education, the ongoing education, and the kinds of classes and opportunities that Brewer Science encourages employees to be a part of?
Yeah, we have lots of opportunities. Any employee can request training of any sort, but we also provide some in-house things that are just sort of standard. So managers and directors all have an opportunity for monthly development where they can get together and we share, updates to company policy and that sort of thing. But we also do a little bit more, and we've really focused on in the last couple of years on emotional intelligence and self-awareness, relationship management, those types of skills. And now we're moving into a lot more of those different diversity, equity, and inclusion drivers and things to make sure people really feel that sense of belonging. And as we have transitioned to be a more split workforce where we have a lot more remote employees, that's been even more important because they're, bringing their lives into the facility with them through these Teams calls and virtual meetings. And so just being aware of how our relationships are built and making sure that we maintain the relationships we have and we continue to build other relationships has been a big focus. But, even just for general employees, we have opportunities for similar development just like that. And we encourage employees to really continue developing and chart their own path. Even, like career planning, we're focusing on that as well. And each employee is really encouraged to develop their own path. It's not just that we're going to set the path and say, hey, you came in here and this is the path you have to follow in manufacturing or HR or whatever group you're in. We really want people to look at other opportunities within the company and figure out how they can grow. You may have two people who are in the exact same role with the same amount of experience and education, but they have different personal drivers and motivations, and they have different plans. One may want to go into leadership and management, and another may want to, just stay within their same role. Maybe they could be a leader by becoming a mentor instead of, a true manager. So providing lots of opportunities like that, but also encouraging employees to chart their own path is really something that we value.
And I think with manufacturing, with Brewer Science, we've grown so much that just naturally happens. As the company grows, opportunities happen. So like I did 2 years in the US. We're looking at, we've got employees that are moving from the US back home to China. And that comes with growth within the industry, that comes with growth of the company. So we do have people that do stay a long time with the company, but they have many different roles within that company, so they don't feel so stagnant, or they feel like they've been doing the job for so long that you do see opportunities happen, that you do see that path for you within Brewer Science, because we change, the industry changes, and with that change comes change and opportunity for our employees.
And even with, like Shalena's team does the talent review process twice a year, where she meets with every single manager to talk about every employee and what's their trajectory and their path and what needs does that team have. So it helps with workforce planning and figuring out what new positions might need to be discussed, but it also helps to discuss those individuals so that we can learn, what else can my team do to help make sure that they're fulfilling their own path.
And those could be personal, like could be a relocation. So if somebody wants to relocate and we don't want to lose them, what can we do there? So it's, it's not professional, it's also personal success that we want the employee to have. So if there's a way that Brewer Science can help them do that, like working remotely or moving to a different state and doing a slightly different role, or moving from one country to another or a different facility to another, then we do look at those, because we ultimately want people not only to be professionally successful, but also personally successful as well.
Amy, I know you and I had gone into some local schools and had talked about whenever students are planning their career path, the way the job market is now, it's possible that what you think you want to do hasn't been invented yet, that there are some opportunities. 10 years ago, these careers had never been heard of. 10 years ago, companies didn't have social media managers, but now, that's an opportunity. Do you want to speak a little bit about how things evolve and anyone on the panel about how things evolve and being ready for change or exploring that possibility?
Yeah, so social media managers, a good example. Drone operators, 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't a thing. And I think that some of those, especially for the workforce that is coming up now, our high school students and college students, they've always been exposed to that, but there's going to be something new. And someone of my generation doesn't always understand, like, oh, these people want to, they're gamers and they want to operate their things. Well, maybe a drone operator would be a great career path for them because it can bring their interests in. But one example that I like to think of that helps people better understand that is if you think of your music choices, think of the music you listen to now and compare it to what you enjoyed listening to 10 years ago. It was very different because one, you're different, and two, music has changed. And if you try to imagine what music you'll listen to 10 years from now, maybe within the same genre, but it's still going to be very different from what you listen to now and even more different from what you listened to 10 years ago. And you just can't predict what that'll be unless you're the person making the music. So if you're making your own path and planning your own career based on those interests, then that can really help set you up for success, especially as someone who's just getting ready to enter the workforce.
Whenever we talk about company culture, can you speak a little bit about how important it is that employees that we understand and help people work within the company culture and gain value through that, use the company culture, our mission, our vision, and our values to in the work that they're doing for Brewer Science. And it's tough now that so many of us are working remotely. It's a little bit more challenging.
I think just having those clearly defined is the first important thing, and then making sure that they're obvious and available to all of the employees. If a company has a mission, vision, and values, but it's just on a piece of paper hanging on the wall somewhere, and it's not something that that you really strive to live by day to day, then it's not really a mission, vision, or values. It's an idea. So really making sure that those things come into every conversation is important. From my perspective, I don't know what everyone else thinks.
And I agree. I think they kind of unite people as well. It's like kind of you understand what that common purpose. So irrespective of where you are in the world, we're all working towards the same thing, and irrespective of what job we do, that we're all aiming to that one purpose for the company, moving it forward. So I do think it kind of bonds people as well. If we constantly refer to it and know what that is, and work to that and stay within the parameters of that, then we are working towards the same outcome, which brings that collaboration, it brings that understanding, it brings that builds those relationships because you've got that foundation. And like you say, you're not working in isolation, then you're working part of the organization's goal to achieve all of the cultures, all of the outcomes, all of the goals.
And culture is so important right now. I think especially, when people think about manufacturing, it's not the traditional assembly line. You go to work, it's dirty, it's dark, it's dusty. And we get asked in 95% of our interviews, what is the culture like? And I can't tell you how many times I have had employees stop me and say, I was hesitant or I was reluctant to believe you when you talked about the culture of Brewer Science and everything that it offered and how the company supports the employee and their family, and it's true. That is really how Brewer is, but that's very important to us, and it's important for us to communicate that to our candidates too.
If someone hires in to be in manufacturing, whenever they look at the opportunities ahead of them, what are some great places where people who start in manufacturing, where they could go with this within the company? We don't want to lose anyone within the company where they could go after working as a manufacturing technician.
I think that's really just unlimited. It depends on the person, because we have we do not just development internally, but we encourage employees to continue their education, and we provide some benefits for that. So it's really about letting them figure out what their plans are, and if they want to continue down a path of something that's completely different from manufacturing, maybe they want to go into accounting, or just something that's not related to manufacturing, the manufacturing component at all. It's an opportunity. So just figuring out what it is that person wants and what their motivators are.
Whenever employees are trying to gauge their success, do you have any words about, hey, how you can be successful regardless of where you are in the company?
I think that's a tricky one because everybody's definition of success is probably a little bit different. Just the 5 people on this call, if you ask us for our personal definition of success, it's probably going to be slightly different than the next person. But I think our job as HR representatives is to help support our employees to get to what their level of success is.
Absolutely. I mean, success could be a title, success could be compensation, success could be leading a team, success could be working for Brewer Science. So it is very much kind of, again, just knowing what your definition of success is and making sure that you communicate that and that you kind of look at opportunities to achieve that, whether that's through training, that's through mentoring, working with your manager, speaking with HR. So yeah, success for one person is very different for somebody else. But at Brewer Science, you're given those opportunities to share that information through talks with your manager, through looking at the career pathways, just really a lot of opportunity for you to see what that looks like. And even on the benefit side, if it's kind of you're wanting to come to Brewer Science to achieve personal success, dealing for an international company, international travel, then we look at those opportunities. Probably wanting to work part-time because your lifestyle's changed, you have dependent care, you want to work for a company that can help you manage both. You can be successful doing that at Brewer Science as well. So yeah, success is very wide definition for success, but it's very personal as well.
I think that one of the things that I do see at Brewer Science is the opportunity to continue personal growth through exploring some possible career paths. I have seen over the years a lot of people who have moved to various places in the company and have been successful in multiple places. So I think that's part of the role that HR brings, is helping people recognize that they are multifaceted, that they have so much more to offer than just a job title. So I think that's one of the things that Brewer Science does really well, because our job titles are not always the same as other companies. We have some unique job titles that you won't find in other industries and even in other companies within the industry. So I think sometimes the careers are so broad, the job title doesn't fully capture everything that employee is bringing of value to the company. Let's go back and talk a little bit about the value of trying to balance the technology of communicating with people all over the world and face to face, and how we are trying to keep people connected. Like through Teams meetings is one way, Zoom, but some of the other things that we're trying to do so people do feel included. Some of the things we offer for people to get involved, chat, and visit, so we don't lose sight of the fact that may not be physically together, but we can still stay connected.
I think that one's it's kind of a fine line to walk for everyone right now. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs outside barking. But I think because we do have the ability to connect so easily and in ways that we never could before. You can do a quick Teams call or Zoom or whatever tool you're using. There are chat tools that it's nice that it allows us to stay connected. But I think the other side of that, the flip side of that coin, is that sometimes it's also hard to disconnect. And at least within Brewer Science, we have we have asked our employees to identify what their top drivers are, the things that motivate them to just, get up and out of bed and perform every day. And work-life balance is one of those. And so I think the best thing that we do for employees is really to encourage the flexible work schedule, and that's embraced by the company, and making sure that people understand that it's also okay at times to say, this is not a good time for me to have a meeting or to be contacted. So we can connect in ways that are meaningful to the individual, but also in ways that don't necessarily overwhelm us and cause burnout.
Especially because we have employees all over the world, we have different time zones. So not everybody's on the same work schedule. So like Amy said, it's great that we've got teams that really is bringing people together a lot easier for remote and international teams, but then it also could dominate. So, as a company, I think we're aware of that. We've made efforts to have, no meetings Fridays to really help people disconnect, but then also trying to find ways for people to come together and have some fun. So we do the coffee and conversations, then we talk about general things that are happening. They were monthly. We used SharePoint and created a scrapbook for people to share photos of what was happening to really help people support one another. Really just to bring people into each other's lives again and just kind of get through specifically COVID. But it does, we want people to connect, not just for work, but also for personal, because these people have relationships with their peers, their friends. So we're wanting to continue for that to continue. And Teams is great for that, but we do try and use Teams not only for work, but also to have a bit of fun as well. We had a game show on Friday between the US team and the UK team. So we really are trying to help people connect, not only for work, but also for some fun as well.
I want somebody to speak a little bit. I think sometimes there is I want to say a hierarchy at places where certain jobs are perceived as being more valuable than others. I really want people to understand that at Brewer Science, every job is important because we're all interconnected. So can somebody kind of speak a little bit about that? Because guys, I'm not really going to be the person talking on the panel discussion. It's you. So I need somebody to cover those things so that people understand how it's not just this person isn't the only critical person. Everyone is adding value. So if someone wants to speak to that, that would be awesome.
Well, I think even just like when COVID really got out of control, the message that the company sent through our COVID team and even just the executive response was that we are all essential. And so instead of saying, a lot of companies went through layoffs and there were a lot of people who became unemployed or misplaced or displaced, but Brewer Science said, we believe you're all essential. And if you weren't essential, why would we keep you on? And so we had that sense of belonging because of that, but also that sense of appreciation that no matter what your role is, it's still important and it's still essential, or, you wouldn't be necessary. So for me personally, that was probably the best way that the company showed. And I've only been at Brewer for 3 years, but that's the best way that the company has really shown that we are all essential and there's not any one job that's better than another one.
And I think even with a lot of our recognition programs, it's not just for a certain level within the company. It's not for a certain group. Length of service awards are given to everybody. If there's bonus payouts, they're given company-wide. So everybody is treated just the same as everybody else. So there's not one category of employee or one department that is given additional benefits or offerings that the whole company wouldn't get, because truly everybody is part of the bigger picture for the company. And that's just one of the many ways that we show that, is that really kind of, if you're part of the company, you are also part of the success, and that's fine with as well.
Shalena, I'm going to toss this out to you, but anyone can answer this. One of the things that I find unusual about this company is we have a lot of employees who have been here 20 years or more. There is, it seems like a lot of people, when they get to Brewer Science, they've found a place where they can really flourish and prosper, professionally and personally. And I know that everyone that I'm talking to has lots of, Brewer Science is not the only place you've worked. So you have some other employer to balance this against. Share your thoughts on what you think it is that encourages people to stay, like the longevity, and what do you think is the causes people to want to have that long-term employment with Brewer Science? I mean, I toss it out to Shalena because I know that people come in sometimes to HR whenever they're going through some turmoil, and they come in and they're distressed, but we work through that, and then we help them, we empower them to move forward. So if anyone wants to speak to why we have the people with a long track record, I would love to get into that a little more.
Well, in my opinion, it's because we are a company of the people and we put our people first. We have candidates that will apply and interview 2, 3, 4, 5 times because they're so adamant to work for such an amazing company. I think our culture and our values is something that ripples out into the community and that people want to be a part of that.
I've actually been with the company 21 years today, which is crazy. But I was one of the, I started off as an office administrator. And then just over those 25 years, I've gone into sales, I've gone into customer service, and then now in HR. And I think it is just one of those companies that really looks at you as an individual, what would you like, and creates those opportunities and does look at your strengths and your wishes and makes those opportunities available. And especially as we grow, then you can grow with the company. So yeah, I've kind of came in very unaware of that I would be here for 21 years. Never thought I would be here for 21 years. It doesn't feel like 21 years because so much has happened over those 21 years. But no, it is one of those where, again, you're going back to knowing what your drivers are, what your passions are, communicating those and then the company's wish to make you successful with them and keep you. It does mean that people are able to stay longer with the company, and then you build those bonds with people. You work with people for so many years that it's working with friends that you want them to be successful. You want Dr. Brewer to be successful. That you do care about one another. You care about the company. That it becomes more than just a job. It becomes really a purpose to just continue to see the company grow.
Do you have something that you think might be super helpful for an instructor that would give them a little more insight?
I think oh, go ahead, Vicki.
I was just going to say that manufacturing, it's changing. There's more robots involved, it's becoming more automated. So it is not just manual. There's a lot of interesting stuff that you're creating, especially for Brewer Science. What we do in manufacturing and in R&D is going to influence the world in many, many years. So there's an excitement about manufacturing. It isn't repetitive. You're having such a greater impact. But also don't let the fact that it's manufacturing prevent you from connecting with a company. Look for a company that has a similar culture or values that you have, that you feel that you can be a part of, and that will make you meet those values or meet what you want to be doing with your life. And so don't let manufacturing put you off, but also think of manufacturing being very exciting and that you're changing the future, and that it's exciting. Manufacturing is changing. It isn't more manual. There's a lot of say robotics now, automation, that it's more technical than you may think, and more exciting and more enhancing.
That's very similar to what I was going to say. It's a highly skilled area, and manufacturing is not, that repetitive work that you think of, and when you think of a factory, it's definitely not repetitive, and not just one day to the next, but even 1 minute to the next might be highly varied. So just learning more about it, I think, is important for both our teachers and for the students who could potentially be in our pipeline of talent.